Hi everyone, it's Anne Sinclair from Digestive Detective. It's been a whole lot of trouble getting on here today. I've posted it on the wrong one and then the internet went out, so here I am at last. So today's digestive tip is about bone broth. And so bone broth today, essentially I'm going to talk to you about how bone broth plays a part in gut health, and if you have allergies or histamine related intolerances, why it's not right for you, and what other things you can try. So bone broth has traditionally been a staple food for most cultures. Basically, once they had a catch and a kill, they would keep all the bones and make a big broth for the whole entire thing. And when you know what's in bone broth, you'll understand why. So it's high in vitamins and minerals, so calcium, magnesium, phosphorus and zinc, which are really great for the hair, the skin, the nails and the teeth. So that sort of makes sense that that's why they would use them, because it's a really good source of minerals for them. The other thing is it's rich in amino acids. You know, it's got gelatin, it's got proline and glycine. So what proline does, proline has an affinity for connective tissue. So it's really, really great for increasing your own collagen, and it's good for cartilage as well, so around your knees and in your joints and bones and sort of stuff. And so it's also really great for wrinkles. So that's one of the benefits of drinking bone broth regularly. You get no wrinkles, or it helps with wrinkles. So the next one is glycine. So glycine promotes hydrochloric acid production. So, and we know that as you age, you lose hydrochloric acid, and so it's good to be able to supplement that with something else rather than having to take a supplement all the time. So it's nice to get it from food. So one of the things with glycine is that we know that conditions like osteoporosis, rheumatoid arthritis, any skin condition, eczema, acne, dermatitis, they are really low in hydrochloric acid production, generally speaking. That's one of the signs that of those conditions. So including glycine when you're treating those conditions is pretty great. The next one is glutamine. So glutamine is probably the healer of the three, so it maintains and repairs the intestinal lining and the intestinal walls. It builds and maintains our muscles. And it reduces our cravings for sugar and alcohol, which is always a good thing, because most people I know say, oh my God, I just crave sugar and alcohol. So having a cup of bone broth every day is a really good thing for that. Gelatin. So the other component of bone broth, which is great, is the gelatin. So the gelatin comes from the breakdown of the collagen that comes out of the bones. And it protects and it soothes the lining of our digestive tract. It's especially good in irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, reflux, those sorts of things. Great for bringing relief to an already inflamed digestive system. So a cup of bone broth will really soothe that down. For people who shouldn't have bone broth, last week I had this fantastic conversation with this lady who rang, and she said she'd done this traditional course and the whole family was having bone broth every day. They were eating fermented foods and all this sort of thing. And then she talked to me about a husband and a kid. She had a couple of kids, I think 4 kids and a husband. So her husband had really bad allergies, sneezing, he had chronic hives. She had a 5-month-old baby, and the baby also had chronic hives as well. They'd all had some sort of gut trouble as well around it, and allergies. And so when I sort of talked through what she was eating, she said to me, my family eat lots of bone broth. We do bone broth and we do fermented foods. So when I hear that sort of story, it's all about bio-individuality. Just because it's a fashionable thing to have bone broth, if it doesn't work for your body, it's not any good. So with this family, essentially the father was having chronic histamine releasing things. His body wasn't being able to break them down, which would give him the chronic hives and the allergies and all of that sort of thing. So what's really important that she sort of got out of the conversation was that just because it's a good thing for most people, it's not necessarily a good thing for her family. And even the baby, that's what the baby was having it every day, and she just said he seems always to have hives, and that would probably be setting that off. So it's good for her to understand that and know that, sometimes when we popularize diets, it's not really the best thing for everybody. So it's really good to understand that. And then she felt bad because she thought she was doing the right thing for her family. Probably at a different time, it probably would be a good thing for a family, but not particularly at this time. So how So, and we'll go back to that. So people who are really sensitive to histamines, they can do, they can still have bone broth, depending. So what I like to encourage people to do is to try a meat broth. So you're not using the bones, you're not cooking it for as long. Traditionally, a bone broth is cooked somewhere between 24 and 48 hours. So with a meat broth, you use, instead of using the chicken carcasses, you use the chicken thigh fillets, and you cook them for a short amount of time, say 2 to 4 hours, and then you take the chicken out, and that will lower the amount of histamines in the actual broth. So, but be warned, because I have had a lady who had done this. She cooked it for 2 hours, absolute tops, and she had 1 tablespoon, and she then had a histamine release, and she was ill for 5 days after that. So, you know, again, they don't work for everybody. So if it doesn't work for you, and you start at 1/4 teaspoon and work your way up, then it doesn't work for you. Your body's overproducing histamines, and you need to find a different way to lower those. So that's the best thing to do. The other thing is, to make a bone broth, a really good bone broth, you need to have bones. Grass-fed is the best sort. Traditionally, I use chicken bones, but I do sometimes do lamb and beef as well. With chicken bones, I just save the carcasses of all of the roast chickens we have, especially in wintertime. We might have 6, we might get 6 or 8 in the freezer before I make bone broth. And so I add those into a big pot. I then buy about 1/2 kilo of chicken wings to add in on top of that, just to give it a bit of robustness. And then you put in your apple cider vinegar. You must put the apple cider vinegar in, because if you don't, you're not getting the drawing of the minerals out of the bone. So the apple cider vinegar is the critical part. So make sure you do that. And you can add onion, black pepper, celery, carrot, whatever it is you like, herbs, all of those sorts of things. So how I do it, I cook it for 48 hours generally, but I never have the stove on overnight, because I'm not sure that I want to go to bed with a flame going. So I actually cook it for 8 or 10 or 12 hours, whatever it is, turn it off, put the lid on, and generally in our house it's cool enough to keep it just on the stove overnight, and when I get up early in the morning I put it back on. So then what you do is you strain it after the time you want it cooked for, put it into the fridge, and it'll get a lovely layer of fat coming on the top of it. And generally you can do whatever you like with that fat. You can cook with it. My family don't like to use that fat. They don't like it. And I used to feed it to my dog, but sadly he's no longer with us. So you can just do what you will with it. So we basically throw it out actually at the minute. So then I buy some plastic disposable cups, which I use over and over and over. And in these disposable cups, because the liquid you're putting in there is cold, whenever you have a recipe for chicken stock or lamb stock or something, it's generally for 1 cup. So I have the cups specifically measured out, I fill them up, and then I freeze them. So then I just go to the freezer and pull out 1 cup. And I'm ready to go. You can put them into glass jars, which I sometimes do as well, but I find if you put them in a 500ml mason jar or a litre mason jar, by the time you get them out and defrost them, you don't often use it all. So I find it's a bit wasteful, so I tend to put them in the cup, because then I can just go, yep, I just need 2 cups, and I'll get 2 cups out. And then I just keep them in the freezer till I want to use them next time. So bone broth has its benefits, but it also has its downsides for people. So be mindful of that, you know, you can do good for yourself, or you can do bad. So the choice is yours. So if you have problems with bone broth, don't drink it. There are some really good powdered ones on the market too. I mean, I think Nutri Organics do a fantastic one that has turmeric and I think it's just turmeric and bone broth in little packets. They do, you know, tubs of it, which are worthwhile to have on hand if you're not making bone broth regularly. I wanted to just point out too, yesterday I did a Facebook Live on my page at Digestive Detective about why you shouldn't buy your supplements from the same place you buy your toilet paper. And there are many reasons for this. So if you haven't checked that out, pop over and have a look at that and leave a comment. That'd be terrific. And I'll see you next week for next week's tip. Thanks. Have a great week. Bye.